Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping straight into something truly profound from the works of Islamic scholar Abd al-Baqi Adib. We're unpacking three majestic names of God: Al-Ali, Al-Allah, and Al-Muta'ali. We're going to explore how understanding the true nature of divine elevation can completely transform our lives, shift our worship, and totally flip our perspective on worldly status.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, definitions of the names. Second, Quranic nuances. Third, how to worship. Fourth, true versus false elevation. And finally, seeking righteous status.
All right, Section 1, definitions of the names. Let's set the foundation.
We're starting with Al-Ali. Now, this name focuses specifically on the absolute perfection and immense elevation of God's attributes. It means the one who is high in his attributes, immense in his blessings, penetrating in his continuous authority, and completely, absolutely far from resembling any of his creations. Think of it as the ultimate elevation of how God operates and manifests his power across the universe.
Next up, we have Al-Allah. This is a really beautiful shift in focus. While Al-Ali is all about the attributes, Al-Allah points to the literal and supreme elevation of God's very essence. It defines the one who is high in his essence, established upon his throne, and distinctly separate from his creation. Basically, it's about exactly who God is in his absolute, unmatched highness.
And finally, we have Al-Muta'ali. This one is huge because it powerfully encompasses both the essence and the attributes we just talked about. But it adds this absolutely crucial layer. It means God stands far, far above any human misconception, earthly imagination, or false claims. His true elevation literally cannot be grasped by our limited human illusions. It's an elevation that totally transcends human comprehension.
Moving on to Section 2, Quranic nuances and the subtle differences.
It's super fascinating to see how these names actually show up in the text of the Quran. Looking at the data, Al-Ali is mentioned 8 times, and you'll frequently see it paired with other majestic names like the Great or the Wise. On the flip side, Allah is used just twice, appearing as a very direct, specific description of the divine.
So the big takeaway here is this really subtle scholarly distinction. Al-Allah represents the absolute elevation of the divine essence, the self. Meanwhile, Al-Ali points specifically to the absolute elevation of his attributes and actions. It's a precise theological distinction, but man, it really deepens our understanding of the divine nature. Okay, Section 3, how to worship. Moving from theory into practice.
This is where the rubber really meets the road. It's one thing to just know the definitions, right? But it's another entirely to live them. We need to explain everything about how we worship God by this name. I want to ask you directly, how do you take these massive, cosmic concepts of divine elevation and actually translate them into everyday devotion?
Well, it all starts internally with your deepest convictions. First, you've got to internalize that God has the absolute highest ideal. Second, you must truly believe in his absolute elevation in essence, attributes, and power. But here's the third point, and I think this is honestly the most comforting part. You have to understand that his ultimate supreme elevation doesn't contradict his closeness to us. No way. He is the highest, yet he remains deeply and immediately close to you, especially in your moments of need.
Which brings us to Section 4, true versus false elevation.
The author hits the nail on the head here regarding a theme we see not just in the text, but literally everywhere in life. The sharp contrast between true, righteous elevation and false, worldly arrogance. He makes it absolutely clear. Any human attempt to elevate yourself without faith is just a dangerous temporary illusion. There is zero true elevation for a creature except through faith. Any other kind of worldly rise is fake, harmful, and for sure it's bound to crash down.
And there's a serious warning attached to this, a profound divine rule highlighted in the book. God does not raise anything in this worldly life out of false arrogance except that he eventually humbles it. It's that simple. Whatever the world falsely elevates inevitably comes down. True height belongs only to the divine and to those who align themselves humbly with his truth.
Finally, Section 5, seeking righteous status.
So, knowing that worldly status built on ego is totally fleeting, how should you, as a focused believer, actually go about seeking a higher position in life? The text gives us a super practical roadmap. You seek righteous elevation by taking these concrete steps. First, elevate yourself by learning beneficial knowledge. Second, Do righteous deeds that actively serve and help your community. Third, maintain excellent, trustworthy character. And step 4, which is a massive test of the ego, stay humble enough to willingly step aside for someone more qualified if they come along. Now that is true, lasting elevation.
If you're finding this breakdown as fascinating as I am, you absolutely need to check out the source material. It's a fantastic resource that's incredibly detailed with pictures for the name of God by Abd al-Baqi Ed-Deeb, an Islamic scholar from Dar el-Allah. If anyone wants to buy it or contact him, you can dial 020-1015-46E235 from Egypt or reach out by the Facebook link provided. It really helps explain everything about how we worship God by this name.
I want to leave you with this profound thought, drawn directly from the poetic verses at the end of our source text. It beautifully contrasts the enduring, fragrant legacy of truth with the fading dust of falsehood. Ask yourself this: when the dust of this world finally settles, will your legacy be the sweet scent of true faith, or just the fading dust of a worldly illusion? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and as always, keep learning and stay focused.